everyone, and welcome again to our Hispanic Heritage Series. We have two amazing speakers today with us. They're from the LULAC, the Fort Hood LULAC Council, 4535. I have to keep the numbers straight. And they're going to talk to us today about their council, but also they're going to share some things. That we just, we love life stories. We love information that people tell us. And so we are just thrilled to have them. We have Bell County Constable Martha Dominguez, Precinct 4, that is going to be with us today. And we also have Miss Myrna Malik Banzan, correct?
Yes.
That is going to be speaking with us today. If you have any questions for them, you can go ahead and put it in the Facebook comments and we will get the questions to them. But, oh, and before we get started on this, the event that we were going to have yesterday has been moved to 1 o'clock today after this event. And so we're going to be learning some cooking right after this particular event. So I'm going to go ahead and let them take it, and go ahead, ladies, and take it over. Thank you for coming.
Martha, you go first.
Okay, we're both saying go ahead. Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, Miss Cindy, for having us today again. Last time that I was on, it turned into a completely different story than what had been planned, and I reviewed it, and like you said, it was just me in the raw, and there's no regrets. Let you know, we all have our emotions. We all have our other side. But today we're talking about Hispanic heritage. Myrna and I belong to the LULAC Council 4535, and it was founded. Actually, I was looking on social media this morning, and one of our founders is down in original founders of our council, Mrs. Sarah Flores, is down in Corpus Christi. Ms. Sarah Flores and Mr. Humberto Flores were part of the original members of this council back in, I believe, the early 80s. Just a little history to it. The mission of LULAC in general, LULAC is a national organization, and all of our councils still have the same mission in general, which is the League of United Latin American Citizens is to advance the economic condition, educational attainment, political influence, housing, health, and civil rights of the Hispanic population of the United States. Now, that's the national mission. However, once we start breaking off into individual councils, it's not strictly for Hispanics. One of our things that we do at our council, one of our projects is scholarships for graduating seniors. And you don't have to be Hispanic. We try to give these scholarships out to students that have lower GPAs that are going to have trouble getting scholarships elsewhere. Most of the organizations cater to the higher GPAs, and so I guess with our council, let's try to give those that aren't going to get that assistance still a chance, because regardless of what you did in high school, you still should have a chance if once you become to that point that you're going to graduate, that you can go to college. A lot of our children, of our kids, don't have that family support. And again, when you come into the struggles, that is one of the struggles, because you don't have that familiar support, as in you need to decide now what you're going to be, and you need to work hard through the next 4 years. A lot of our kids realize during high school what they want to do. So that's why we work with that particular group. As a constable, when I go out there and do some truancy paperwork, those are the kids that I talk to, the ones that are struggling, that are considering dropping out of school, because who's going to help me? How am I going to get this done? Well, you always have choices to make. You can still get back on track. And I always throw LULAC in there. Look, every year around January, February, LULAC puts out these applications for scholarships. $1,000 can go a long way. Myrna, you want to add anything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are some kids that actually can't afford, and even their parents. Sometimes it's not necessarily the kid, but it's the parents that can't afford it, but it gives them the opportunity. One of our first recipient actually is now back as a member in our council, and she now has a PhD doing all kinds of good stuff. So you never know what these kids are going to be ending up with in the future. These kids are our future. So whatever we can do to help them, we'd like to be able to do that.
So, and a question, and again, because of it, it is because of the name of the organization. A lot of people seem to, assume that it's only for Hispanics. It is not. Anybody can join. All we ask is that you be a participating member. And things happen. I joined in 2017, and I had been wanting to do it for years prior. I just lived too far out, and I just knew I wasn't going to have the time to make any of the meetings. So I'm like, I don't want to, do that. So once I moved into town, I joined and became an active member. Uh, it's it's really easy. You just get a hold of one of us. We'll give you some paperwork to fill out. It's a one-page application, and it's really just I guess a promise sort of say that you will be active in the with us. We try to stay active throughout the community because that's how we give back. We have to have fundraisers. We have to get sponsors for all of our scholarships that we give out. So it's not easy. You have to stay active again, but things happen sometimes, and you can't be an active member, and we understand that as well. Um,
We have we have very we're not a big organization. We have very few members. Like right now we're like a little over 20, but all of these members are active. There are some organizations where you'll have hundreds and hundreds of members, but then you never ever get to see them. With ours, we may be a small group, but we are all active and we all get together, do whatever it is that we can do to help, whether it's me and Martha or somebody else. We don't want just members, because you know what, that membership deal, that's not going to help us really.
right.
That it's not that much, but the warm body, the volunteerism, that's what's going to help us.
And so it's an extended family. It's an extended
Yes,
portion of your family because
yes.
most of our some meetings if or and whatnot they're held at your house.
Mhm.
Sometimes we'll find a place where we can meet and we'll go there. But COVID really it really hurt us. It hurt everybody else. It hurt
Mhm.
every organization as well, because you had to completely stop. So our banquet for 2020 was canceled. I don't think we're going to have one for 21. The same thing. So 22, I don't see that happening as well. But money was still raised and scholarships were still given.
Mhm.
I mean, the banquet is, I guess, more for us, really, and to actually, showcase our recipients because, I mean, they deserve it. They've earned it. So, hey, let's show everybody what you've done, what you've accomplished, and that even though you had this at this point, now you're moving on and you're going to have a chance. Um, we say that as college, but we also understand that college isn't for everybody. So, trade schools are another thing that we try to push. Um,
Mhm.
one of our biggest events that we have done was the TMOM, the Texas Mission of Mercy
Yes.
event that we did February of 2020.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was a dental program that between LULAC 4535 and other sponsors in the area we put together, and it was held at Fairway Middle School because
Mhm.
KISD was involved in that perspective, you know, and the sheriff's office was involved by providing trustees. So it took about 2 years to put together.
Mhm.
When Mr. Raul, um, bless his soul, may he rest in peace, when he started bringing that up and he said what it was involved and it's in 2 years, we're like, oh, I know I was like, oh my gosh, what are you getting us into? It just seemed unreachable and unattainable, everything that had to get done.
Mhm.
But lo and behold, February 2020 came around and everything was streamlined. It was an amazing event. We had dentists from all over the place come down. It had to do with Texas Dentist Association. Um, that's where the dentists are from.
Mhm.
Some of them came down from Oklahoma.
Yes.
to do this project. And nobody, not a single person, was compensated a single penny for anything. Everything every single one of us did was completely, just out of the goodness of our hearts, because we wanted this to be done. um, and when you start to think about how important your dental is to every other part of your body, then we are like, hey, something going on in your mouth can lead to a heart attack, that extreme. So we started putting this out. Hey, come do this, come do this. We ended up with 543 patients,
Mm-hmm.
patients that we helped in those 2 days. And I looked it up this morning on Facebook. 3,173 treatments is what we provided. Well, the dentist and all the students and everybody that was here. 500,000, no.
And those are all voluntary. Those patients did not have to spend anything. We even fed them before and after, whatever it is that they're allowed to eat, we even fed them.
Yes.
So it did not cost them anything. So a lot of the people that came there were the ones that don't have dental insurance.
Yes.
That really, really need dental work.
That was the only requirement, to not have any dental insurance.
Yeah.
Total production cost between everything was $499,368. Yes.
Yes.
That's what it would have cost for these 543 patients to go outside and get their dental care taken care of. So when we got those numbers, that was okay. Wow. We could have done more.
It was overwhelming when we found out the numbers. We're like, what? We can do double next time.
We could have done more. How long do we have to wait till we have to do this? And then I was personally going to follow that one out to, I think San Angelo was going to be the next one, but then COVID hit. That following month, COVID hit. So we're like, okay, and all that got canceled. But I told them, I was like, if it comes down here again where we can do it, I'm all for it. That was a struggle. Speaking of struggles, that was a struggle, trying to get donations from the community, because everything, to include the food that we provided for the patients, that was all donation based.
Mm-hmm.
Myrna here is the best person to give donations, because she had so many people. We've had different events, and Myrna, that's her calling.
Hey, I don't mind begging, if it's gonna help somebody, I don't mind it at all, and somehow people have a hard time saying no to me, so they're like, no, Mirna, go for it.
I don't understand that, but yes, and she'll come back, hey, I got this, and you're like, I was like, what? What? How did you do that? I was like, okay, here's your flyers, you do it. And it's great. Let's see, the scholarships, the Texas Mission of Mercy, and the citizenship classes. So when it comes to the immigration portion of our mission statement, we had been prepping permanent residents to take their citizenship exam. The catch to that is that you already have to be able to speak and understand the English language. So just to get there, that's one of the biggest struggles for our communities, whether it's Asian, it doesn't matter what your background is. That's going to be the biggest struggle. If you've ever taken the time to understand their language, another language, and how they speak it and write it, ours is the hardest to learn. English is the absolute hardest language to learn because it's backwards. Back in the 80s, when the local YMCA that was downtown was holding these citizenship classes, I got a chance to go there, and I was like, okay. So I had my own family at home that I started doing this with, and that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, I'm bilingual, I speak both languages, but when it comes to trying to teach somebody else, I was like, then you realize how difficult it is. I have been here since I was 3-4 years old. So English is my second language. I grew up speaking that in Spanish. So when you were talking about struggles, I was like, well, struggles are different for some people. Yes, if you're talking to me, you wouldn't think that English was my second language, but because in school, and children can be very mean.
Yes.
And that, so I'm like, okay, well, a struggle for me could have been something somebody else didn't care about. But when I was going to school and I had that thick accent, and other kids made fun of me, I mean, I would go home in tears, but I would fall asleep on the table with a dictionary, and so there I am. And I can remember being in fourth grade and falling asleep, waking up every night on the kitchen table because I was doing the homework, so you work you work so hard to get rid of the accent. And now I tell people, don't. That's you. If somebody has a problem with your accent, that is their problem, not yours. You learn and you speak what you can, because you do need to learn how to do it yourself. It took me years to get my mom to not call me. Hey, I need a chance. I was like, no, ma'am, you can speak. You do it. You have an accent, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with your accent. You've spoken Spanish all your life. How can anybody expect you to not have an accent? I was like, besides, it opens up, for questions for people that are interested. Well, where are you from? So that's one of the things that to me it was a struggle, but now I completely, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. There's nothing wrong with that. When we were talking earlier about, don't forget where you came from. That's another thing. We let so many people, so many of us try to put that aside, and I'm like, no, because that is part of what got you and what made you what you are at this point. If I just looking at me and Myrna, if we were to try to say, oh no, I'm this, and no, I'm not Hispanic, or Myrna, I'm not
Yeah.
from the Philippines, people are gonna like, really?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't have a problem telling everybody what I am. A lot of people, because they recognize me and they looked at me, they're like, "Are you Hispanic? You kind of look Hispanic." And I tell them, I said, "I'm actually Filipino, but what difference does it make? It doesn't make a
It
difference.
doesn't. It
It does not
doesn't.
make a difference." Mm.
So that's so our community, I believe, struggles with that a lot, and not trying to, I guess, get criticized
Mhm.
for accents, for how they look, for their traditions, for their cultural beliefs. And one thing that I did, actually, when I was campaigning, I was like, no, I mean, my office, I don't care what your background is, because when you're coming in for help, um, that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to help you. So, believe it or not, just this past month, I've had a good 3 to 4 calls and visits regarding immigration. you know we have a question, and we know that you're a part of this, and that you're not going to judge us, or try to get rid of us because of our situation. I'm like, well, that's not my job. I mean, I don't try to be ugly, but if I wanted to work for Border Patrol, that's where I'd be. And that goes across the board for everybody. I signed up to help, to serve, and
Yes.
that's really what we do. We serve in whatever capacity. A few months ago, we were actually serving children at one of our local foster care shelters. You know, so and it's interesting because and this hasn't doesn't have to do with LULAC, but as part of our job, we remove children with CPS from CPS, and to CPS, from parents to CPS. And some of them get to go home with family. Well, we saw what happens to the portion that doesn't. So we're like, oh, once I found out, it's like, oh, I've never followed that. But, so when there's no family members, these kids stay in these shelters, sometimes until they're 17. So we got a little involved in that. And that's what I'm saying, when I told the guys, I was like, okay, so we're literally going to be serving this time. You guys love to serve. Well, here we go. You get this, and we're going to cater to these children. Um, I think even though it's not part of it all comes together. It all comes together because, with LULAC, we are trying to help anybody and everybody that we can. Come next month, well, I consider this already October, but come November, when we, during Thanksgiving, we'll do some Thanksgiving baskets, to families that we've identified in the area that possibly need that assistance. It's too easy to say, hey, there's different organizations to, go to the food pantry. Well, what people fail to realize is that there's paperwork that needs to be filled out at these food pantries or whatever place for families to go get assistance. And if you're say a Hispanic, for example, and you don't have anybody in your family that reads or writes, then how are you going to do that? So to those that can, send them here. Hey, there's just different places, go get your help. But to those that don't and maybe need extra help, maybe they are going there and that's still not going to be enough because they're going to give you what you need based on your family size, which if any of you have ever gone, I have. I had a family a couple of years ago that didn't have a vehicle to get to the food pantry. So she gave me her information and I would go to the food pantry. And I don't share this, Myrna, so you probably don't know because you're like, but yeah, so I would do that while I was working. I got permission at work and I was like, hey, they have the assistance, they just don't have the means to get there. So what good does that do? You know? So I would
Yeah,
definitely.
well, you know what? I mean, I volunteer at the food pantry as well, and I know that they have. There's kind of some kind of stigma on it, and so sometimes people don't want to be seen there. They'll try to avoid it. So if it's something to where you can bring it to them instead of them coming to you, then that would be a better way to do it. Because, like I said, I'm sorry to say, but in our world, we've become so judgmental
Yes.
to where if we just see them in a certain place, we're like, oh my God, what is she doing there? You know what I mean? But really, that doesn't mean anything. And so it keeps people from asking for help if they really need it. So that's where we step in and look for those people and we bring the help to them.
And we are. I mean, when I showed up there at that food pantry with the number, people were looking at me, it's just a certain way, because they didn't know I was there for myself. Nobody knew I was there for somebody else. Nobody, and I wasn't going to go and tell them it's not for me. So I went up and I talked to um, the clerks that were the volunteers that were at that desk that day, and I was like, hey, I've got this number for this lady. This is her address. She can't come up here to get her items. Can I pick them up and take them to her? Sure, no problem, and I was like, and if you know of somebody else that's in the same position, just let me know. I don't have a problem with doing that. Well, when I started seeing what they could get, I was like, how can a family survive? I know you guys give items out based on the size of the family, but and thank you, God bless you for everything you do because it's strictly volunteer services, but this isn't enough. I know you're doing what you can, but to me, it just wasn't enough for a family that's in that situation. Especially if you have teenagers. It's bad enough if you have little ones, but when you have teenagers that are still growing and that eat, and if you've had kids, that it can eat you out of house and home. I was like, I just didn't understand that. So again, LULAC that year when it came to that, that was first family. Then we held a food drive and filled up the pantry because my thing it was here I have a family that's legitimately in this situation. It's not for whatever reason. It's not because mom's getting assistance or whatnot, and because that's how judgmental we get.
Yes.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing with your money? So here I knew the whole situation. Single parent household, mom is working, but there's rent. And so I had a rundown of everything they were doing. So that's when I started thinking. I was like, okay, you guys, people need food all year long, not just during Thanksgiving, not just during Christmas. What happens the rest of the year? So we stepped in, or, again, I'm Mother Martha. Our office stepped in and we held a food drive here at our building and the next building over. I sent out flyers, I made up flyers, went up, posted them, and we filled up their pantry for like 3 to 4 months. Then they moved out of state because things got harder. So what happens? They were lucky that they had family elsewhere. So okay, we just can't survive here. We can't just we're doing our best. We can't do it. So they moved out of state, and that's fine. That's fine. I hope that they had somebody else to help. But we get as LULAC, we do the same thing. It
Yes.
I keep saying, you do stuff in your personal separate life that a lot of people don't know about, but at the same time, it's everything has to coincide. Your personal life, your professional life, the organizations that you choose to belong to join, and it's because that's you. When our with our members, that's you, because every time of somebody that needs help, whether you want to get the rest of us involved or not, at some point we find out what you did. Because
Mhm.
none of us do it to come out here for any type of recognition.
Yes.
My recognition
Absolutely.
is me knowing that I helped somebody,
Yes.
you know, and
Absolutely.
and that's it. Whether
Absolutely.
anybody knows about it or not, it doesn't really matter,
Hmm.
you
Yes.
know.
Mhm.
Something that we all at some point have to uh, break of, because the more people we tell about it, the more people we can get involved and to keep it growing, to keep helping others. Um, LULAC was the best thing I've done. It's the best thing I've done. I really like being involved. Miss Julia and Mr. Raul, the best people to have as a mentor, and to be like, wow, if they did this, why aren't we? If they did this, then we can do it. And I hope that we get our group good and going, strong as we were. COVID is no joke, and it's been very detrimental to a lot of people. A lot of our members have been, lost family members because of it. And it's kind of hard to come back from that. And we understand. So, there's just no words that we can say to anybody at that point. But only thing we can do is respect what you're going through, and give you the time, as much time as you need. It's too easy to say, well, they've passed, you need to go get over it. It's been a month. Unless you've lost a loved one, then you don't realize that it could take years. It could never be the same for that person. You just don't know. Um,
Well, is it October or November that we're bringing water to the police stations and fire departments?
that passed, and it was this past month that we normally do it in September for 9/11. But
Uh-huh.
because we still devoted our funds to the scholarships, and we didn't have any more events to where we could raise up the funds, we didn't have the funds to do that this year.
Well,
Uh,
yesterday at the Hispanic Heritage thing, Ms. Julia did say we have the water. So maybe we'll do it, even if it's late.
we may still do
Yeah.
it. I know
Yeah.
we had a huge donation made
Yeah.
from one of the bottling companies. It
Hmm.
was just we didn't have the means to go pick it up, so
Yeah.
we don't know if it's still available.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because it was on a first come first serve. Here's these pallets of water to whoever can come get them, whenever you can come get them. But
It's just every little thing helps, though, you
yes,
know?
every little thing.
Yes.
Um, hopefully we
I
can
have
get our
a
banquet going.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you find people, like the youth who need help with this and the people who need immigration? Do they just kind of fall into your lap? Or, I mean, y'all do such amazing things. So
They
how are you
do.
finding people?
They do. As far as the kids, the scholarships, the applications are sent to each individual high school, January, February timeframe. Um, and that's what we are currently actively working, trying to get sponsors, trying to get donations for the 22 scholarships, for the 2022 scholarships. As far as the immigration classes, people just call. It was done on a regular basis for so long that word spreads and people call. It's the number to call. It's 1-800-CLEAN. That's the easiest. There's different cell phone numbers, but the one way to remember, and Miss Julia reminded me the other day, is 1-800-CLEAN. Just call that number. And it's kind of hard to start a class when you don't have people interested that want to be in it. Um, just like regular school, if you have a class going and then you have somebody come in the middle, so we're trying to get a group of students right now so that we can put our classes back on. Once we have a good group interested in having a class, then finding the place and the instructors won't be that hard,
Problem, yeah.
you know.
We also we are also the one that's recommended by the INS. So if somebody calls and they'll say, what location are you in? And they happen to say, okay, let's say Waco, for example, they'll say, okay, there's a class in Colleen. Call this number and see if you can go over there. We've had people that are as far as Waco, past Waco, that comes to the class.
So that is a big help. You know, that's a big help. It's pretty much a history. You're learning the history of the United States because you need to know that to be able to pass your citizenship exam. I believe there's 100 to 150 questions that you learn the question and the answer to read it and to write it. So when you go in front of these immigration judges, it's sort of like a conversation that you're having. But amongst that conversation, here come the questions. It's just like right now, and all of a sudden, Summer, who was the first president of the United States?
Oh my gosh!
And it goes like that. So they, as far as the immigration judges, you know, and this is something that, you know, we try to tell people: you're not going to be in there. It's not going to be somebody that wants to see you fail. You know, these people are going to make you comfortable, and it's just questions that come up that they're just randomly asked. You get about 3-4 questions asked. You know, you write a sentence, but that whole conversation that you're having with that judge is in English. So you have to get comfortable enough, and that comes part of getting over that struggle, that you have that accent. Well, you know what? It's when you tell them the judge is not going to judge you on your accent; it's on whether you can communicate back and forth. Mm-hmm. You know, so when you get that across, and I believe it relaxes, puts people more at ease. You know, if we can be talking right now and I can ask you a question, you can answer it, and you should be good to go.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question. You know, speaking about it, sounds like you guys are also, you know, emotionally supportive of them, you know, of people that are coming to you. Um, you know, in the last several years, there's been a lot of upheaval. There's been a lot of, and I hate to get into political, but like, you know, redistricting, all of this, you know, all of this is just coming about. Well, it's probably been here forever, but it's just really in whatever. Do you find that you are dealing with things like fear and
oh, absolutely,
you know, worry that people are not going to be represented? Do you feel like that is the struggle that's been happening more and more lately?
The fear is always going to be there, regardless who's in office or not, because you can be in office, whether it be as a senator, a state rep, a congressman, even as here, you know, our local county officials, and you can be in office, and if you're trying to change things, that doesn't mean every single person under you is going to welcome and move along with that change. You know, so I can tell people all day long, you know, don't be scared. If you see something, you know, that's our famous thing. If you see something, say something, regardless of, you know, and a lot of people are scared for repercussions because they may not have that legal status. And they'll give me examples, you know, of what's happened. And I was like, well, I'm sorry that happened to you, but regardless of how this person treated you, you know, you can't live in fear in your neighborhood because you have something that's some criminal activity going on. You have to report it. It's nobody's business to ask you what your legal status is to report a crime. You know, you want to get it. So I give them different avenues. Example, anonymous tips. You know, you know something's going on and you actually absolutely can verify. You know, just call this in, get somebody interested. You don't want it to come back to you at all. It's too easy. Get somebody else that doesn't have an accent. If you think that's going to make a difference, I was like, which I try to assure them the best I can. It's not, because they're not sitting on the other end of that phone saying, oh, this is a Hispanic one, you know, whatever. I was like, it's not that case. You know, you may think it is, but that's absolutely not the case. You know, I went as far as saying, if you don't trust anybody at your local law enforcement, come here. We'll put you in contact with somebody that is going to do something about it. You know,
fear is actually one of the problems that we have, because like when we did the census last year, there were some that were scared to be counted because they thought, oh, we're going to turn them in because they're not here legally.
You're just
And
trying to find out where I'm at to come to get me picked up.
yeah, that's one of the biggest thing. We're like, no, we just want to count you. And they're sometimes they won't, they'll see you and they'll just shut the door because they don't want to talk to you because they're scared. They don't know what you're there for. And they don't know, oh my God, the next thing, if I talk to them, the next thing I know, INS is going to be here and they're going to arrest us. ICE is going to come, watch me and all that. I'm like, fear is one of the biggest struggles that we do have.
It is.
Mhm.
It
Yes.
is. It takes, in that particular case, it took explaining what the census does. We want to make sure that we have enough schools for your children. Do we want to go back to where, you
Mhm.
had 50
Yes.
kids in a class because you didn't get counted, So
Yes.
even as hard as it was, as the census workers tried, I still don't believe that everybody, especially in our community, was counted.
Oh no. Besides, it also, it was supposed to be all the way to December, and by September it was stopped
Yes.
because, all of the things that were going on. So it's very hard. It's very hard to count everybody. Like I said, first of all, this people are scared. They're like, oh, they're gonna turn us in, and then we still have to hunt. So I was a volunteer for the census thing. And the homeless, they're like, oh my God, we have to find the homeless. We need to make sure that they're being counted. But a lot of people don't understand what the census is for. And that's what, Constable Martha was trying to emphasize, is that, no, we're not here to get you. We want to make sure that you get all of the privileges that you can get, but we need to count you. If we only count 75%, we're losing that 25%, which is a big number. I mean, maybe people think it's only 25, but that is huge. You can lose a lot. You don't count 100%.
Absolutely. And that comes again with the being represented. So do
Mhm.
I feel that we are actually equally represented? No. No, because it goes back to those that are in fear and don't speak up, like, hey, I'm here, I exist. So when you come to the redistricting, you have to realize that they are not taken into consideration. And I don't like to get into the political talk about it as well, but it's kind of, just an example, a broad example, because I know both communities. What does Colleen have to do with Lampasas?
Mm-hmm.
But yet
Right.
we're in one of the same districts. So,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, no, that's all I'm going to say about that. But no, I don't. At the end of the day, we're not represented the way we should be. And it just takes, you don't even have to, it just go as far as looking at pictures, of who we have representing us.
Well, and I'm gonna shift gears a minute, now that I'm just like, making really tough questions for you guys. Um, we were talking on Monday of a La Familia family, and that in personal lives you learn certain values, and you've brought that into LULAC. Both of you ladies seem so giving, and you're out there trying to help people who cannot help themselves or have difficulty helping themselves. Do you feel that you've learned a lot of this in your family, or have you learned this throughout your adulthood? If you don't mind sharing, how did you get so nice?
I will say I'm a Gemini. I try to keep the bad one away all the time. So I always tell everybody, don't piss me off or anything like that, because that other one's gonna come out.
Well, but at the same time, Myrna, there has to be a balance.
Yes,
Yes, because you can be so giving that it can hurt you. So you have to have that balance and know when to say no.
absolutely,
Do not provide
absolutely,
assistance. You want it, but I know
absolutely.
your situation. So yeah, I believe there has to be a balance, because you have to say yes, 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 but there has to be a no, no at some point. you know I learned it at home. My parents were the ones that if you needed anything, they would give you the shirt off their back. There was a point where we'd have, this is a Hispanic joke per se, but there's a time when we have about 15 people in our house. Well, why? Because so and so doesn't have a place to stay, so whatever happened. And here is our house. We have a living room, you know, that you're just there for a couple minutes, so they welcome people in. So it's traditional for us. If you come over, we're going to feed you. Don't say no because you're still going to eat. So, and when I would go visit my family in Mexico, that's exactly, so you're like, oh, okay, so you're not just trying to force feed people. That's just customary. It's traditional. Whoever you welcome into your house, you take care of them from top to bottom if they need, so why does that just stop with your family? It doesn't.
Yeah.
So my house is an open door for people in need. You need something, come on over. And in return, even, and this is funny. Right now, where I live, I have a neighbor that whenever they have something extra groceries, they'll show up at my front door. Like cereal. They don't eat cereal, so whenever some of their kids or somebody buys cereal for them, they come and bring it over. And at first, we're like, who is dropping off cereal at the front door? I don't know if we should even open it. Or, you start to, should be trashing what's in it. And they come over and be like, hey, did you get this and that? And I was like, oh, okay, it was you. So what do we start doing? We learned that there's a couple of things that they're lacking. So whenever we get them, like, hey, take this over there. Have a ton of fresh vegetables. They want to eat healthier. Hey, take these over there. It just goes like that, back and forth, back and forth. Just recently I told a friend, hey, I know you're going through this and this and that. Just understand that doesn't matter what time of day or night. We're the closest to you. You come on over. I would rather wake up in the middle of the night to open my door for you than to hear about something that happened in the news. That's just the last thing. So, and the response was like, you don't know me that well. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. A life is a life regardless of who it is. And my kids see that. My kids see that. So, and they laugh. I've got a senior in high school, and my daughter's attending CTC. This is probably her last semester before she moves on and moves out further. And they have a running joke amongst each other, like, hey, we're going to come home probably next year and mom's going to have adopted 10 kids. She's going to have found that need a place. I was like, don't joke about that. I was like, don't joke about that because y'all be gone. That might happen, but it's just because they know, and they're like, mom, we know that you try to help everybody. And the thing is, sometimes people will talk about like, you can't save the world. No, but I can try to save as many as I can.
Yeah. Well, mine is the same way. I believe it starts at home. Everything starts at home. My mother was very giving, and I'm sure her parents were also the same way. And so I'm the same way. I picked it up from my mother, and plus I went to a Catholic school. So in Catholic school, what they instill in you, all those things, and it just grows on you and it becomes a part of you. So, and the same way, like when Martha would say, my kids would always pick it up. One time we were driving around, it was raining, and I saw this couple or something. They were just like in the corner and it was raining. And I looked at my daughter because she was driving. We were in her car, and I looked at her. I go, Marie, do you have an umbrella in your car? And she goes, yeah, in the back. So I took it, rolled down the window, and threw it at the couple. And my daughter goes, Mom, you just gave away my umbrella. And I said, they need it more than you do. I'll get you another one. It's just, it becomes innate in you to see that if somebody needs help, that you want to help. And it's not like Martha said earlier, you do it on your own. You don't need recognition for it. You don't need people to know what you're doing, but it's you. It makes you feel good that you helped somebody, and it makes you feel good that you made somebody feel good.
Yes.
That's what counts the most. It doesn't matter who saw you or who knows what you're doing. It's none of their business anyway. To me, it's none of their business. So if I want to help somebody, as long as I'm not asking them, I'm okay. But I'll take it back. When it comes to fundraising, I have no shame in asking people if it's for, for a good cause.
Yes.
I will come to you and I will ask you. Mm.
That's awesome. We forgot to ask you before we started if y'all had either a Facebook or a website. So if y'all do, if you'll open the chat and put that in so that Lee can put that in the comments. And can people just, once they go to your website, can they just talk to you guys? I mean, are y'all open to just having people say, hi, I'd like to join, or hi, I need help, or can you give me more information?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Berna and myself are administrators for our LULAC Facebook page, and it's just LULAC 4535. Anybody can go on there, and it's really just going to come down to whoever sees it first, unless you have a specific person you want to speak to. And more than likely, it's going to be Myrna that responds to, to that Facebook, but it's really that simple. Sometimes I've seen, where we got to not monitoring it as much during the COVID time because nothing was going on. So there was a couple of times where there was a message that I sat for a little bit, but I mean, not now. We're trying to become a lot more active, and again, Myrna would probably be the one to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, can we open it up? Let's see if Lee, does anybody have any questions?
There are no questions currently, but there may be a problem because your dean couldn't make a comment for some reason, so there may be something going on.
Oh, with the comments, like they're
Yes.
not working. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I know my dean, and so let's see. Let me see if she texted me that comment. She did. Okay, wait. Isn't technology great? Let's see if I can get her question. Oh, okay. Well, she said, tell them thank you. And she is texting me something else.
Those little dots moving, right?
Yes. And so we will have a question in a second. And for whatever reason is it the questions are blocking. Uh, we definitely maybe don't know if I'm blocking. I don't think I'm blocking my dean. But we or very, very I'll let you know the question when it comes through. We just seem to be blocking everywhere. No, but I always get inspired when oh, okay. Oh, okay. She is making a comment that you had said, Constable Dominguez. She said, your quote, why does it stop at home? She loves that
Yes.
because she's right. There's, why leave all of that just, I mean, we're supposed to be, treating others as ourselves, and it's not
Exactly.
just at home.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's when people ask, well, why do you do this? Well, I don't do anything for any type of recognition. I do everything with the hopes that if I'm ever in that position, I get the same assistance, I get somebody else to do it for me. We don't know. We're sitting here today and we don't know if this time next year we're going to have a place to live or not, or something's going to happen, or whether you're going to have a job or not. Nothing, I've always told everybody, nothing in this life is guaranteed or secured. Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
So live your life knowing that you may wake up one day and everything's going to be gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even like the pandemic, we didn't see this coming.
No?
And it was like everybody's life changed. And the people who didn't have extra money to
Exactly.
hoard toilet paper
Yeah.
did not have toilet paper. And, and so it is important that, we identify in our community the people who have the heart and the people who are going to say, yeah, I may not be able to help you 100%, but let me try to help you in this capacity. And, this is why we invite people in our community, because we want our community to know that, you know, whatever background you're coming from, there are so many people that have a heart and so many people that are willing to help.
Mhm.
And you guys are like, awesome. Like seriously, awesome.
My
Thank
parents
you.
used to say
Thank you.
when we
I,
would talk
you know,
about eating, my
Hmm.
parents would say, whenever they would just all of a sudden, okay, we're having a dinner. It's meant for the 8 of us. All of a sudden, you have 12 people, and the rest of us are like, because we were kids, my parents would be like, hey, donde come uno, comen dos, meaning where one can eat, then two can. If you have food
Mhm.
for one, you're going to have food for two. It's just a smaller portion, but you can extend that other portion to the following person. It's better to have a little bit than have nothing at all.
Right, right. I
So
agree. I agree.
I grew up with that. That being said, of course, we cook for like way more than what we're going to have. And a couple of the guys here say, "Hey, you and my wife, y'all cook like it's going to be a whole a ton of people coming over." And I'm
Banquet.
like, well, you know what? Because I grew up, it's best to give leftovers and to have somebody not eat.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Give food to take home. It's that's and again, that's where from here, Mother Martha came in years ago, and it's okay. Mother Martha's got it taken care of. She likes to feed people, and
Oh.
believe it or not, I looked up Martha, the meaning of the name Martha, and it's Lady of the Feast. So I'm going to be
Oh,
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So yeah, perfect. Perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. And Lee, did you sound like you were gonna tell us something or ask us something?
No, I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay.
I think it was Myrna that I kept interrupting.
Myrna, did
oh
you?
no, I was just gonna say, to me, if I can have, if I can make a difference for one person, that's big for me, because that one person then in turn will make a difference to somebody else. There's a lot of times we just want to pay it forward. You don't want to. Constable Martha and me, we do these things. Yes, she did say that. Oh, hopefully, if I am in that situation, somebody would also help me. But that's really not the base thing that we look for. We just want to pay it forward and do the stuff that we can do.
Right,
But yeah, I mean, she's right though. You never know where you're going to be next year at this time. You may be the one panhandling somewhere,
right,
and you don't know what the future holds for you. So, out of the goodness of your heart, you do this help with everybody else. You do your assistance. And if we can't, we'll direct you to somebody else. We'll kind of guide you. We don't just do like Constable Marta and I, we don't just do like LULAC stuff. People reach out to us for all kinds of stuff, and then we just direct them. We're like, oh, you know what? I know this. I can tell them about this and all that kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, right now I have somebody that has a dog. Anybody wants to adopt a dog?
No.
Because they just
okay,
adopted
guys.
they just adopted a dog, and the baby happened to be allergic to the dog. So,
Oh,
and I've called places, and they're all full right now. So today, that's my mission, is to get that dog placed in their forever home.
You know,
okay. So you guys hear that?
whoever needs
You
a
want
dog,
a dog? Reach
not
out
us.
to me.
Okay.
We
Well,
forget that we are the prayers that people make. God works through people. And I say this because sometimes I'll be behind somebody and I could see their situation in line at a store, and I'll flag because I know these cashiers now, the clerks, and I'm like, I got it. And they'll just look. So they'll tell this person, you're good to go. There was one time after I did that, it wasn't, and people are behind me. I'm like, oh, I was like, you never know, but I knew from looking at this person that they probably needed to save what money they were about to spend on this little bit of food for something else.
Mhm.
right.
And I say that sometimes we're God works through us as far as prayers go,
Yes.
because when I walked outside, and it brought me kind of to tears, so I had to go to my patrol car really quick. This person is outside on their knees,
Right.
thanking God for it. And I was like, so
Well, and we do. I'm actually getting questions now via text. And one of the questions was how would you recommend like approaching someone if you saw someone on the street and they just seem to need help?
you ask them
How
how
would
they're
you?
doing. It's as simple as asking somebody how they're doing, how their day's going. And maybe that's all they're waiting for, is for somebody to even show that they care. But you have to ask it. It has to be a legitimate concern, not just you walk in the room, hey, how are you doing? Because a lot of times when you say that, you really don't care how people are doing.
Right,
Mhm.
And
right,
people can tell how you ask that,
Mhm.
so
right.
it's honestly, that's the easiest way. And especially if you know this person and you know that they're not acting right, we as law enforcement, part of our training is to actually just flat out ask
Yeah,
and flat out say, you don't look all right. You look this way and that. How are you feeling? Are you okay? What's going on? You get a couple of answers and you get the suicidal, thought in your mind that this might be, are you planning on doing this? It's just too easy, because when you don't ask open-ended, oh, you want to ask open-ended questions, not something is going to be yes or no. How are you
yes.
doing today?
Well, and just from my past experience, I know that a lot of times people do not want to ask or say something,
Yes,
and
because
it's
they think,
much safer to be invisible.
yes,
And just you talking to them can mean I'm not invisible and
Yes,
I
I'm here.
matter.
exist. It
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to go down to their level, not like, you're like way up there, coming up to them going, "Hey, how are you doing?" You really have to go down to their level and say, "Is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything I can help you with?" Not because a lot sometimes, and like I talked about stigma earlier, I talked about, judgmental, because there are some people that are just like that, and they also get defensive because they don't really want to be in the situation they're in.
right.
Nobody wants to be homeless. Nobody wants to be, in need of whatever it is that they need. So sometimes they really get embarrassed. So you kind of have to like lower yourself down, and not be like, "Oh, I think I can help this person. Let me come up to them." Just
Right.
Yeah.
just be,
It shows in your expressions if
yes,
the concern is actually there,
yes, yes.
and it took me going to a training class for actual mental health, and crisis intervention, to realize that I had those expressions when I was actually talking to people. And it was one of those instructors, they're in, I'm going through the scenarios because you do a lot of role playing you have to practice. And I walk in, and tells us what's going on. We get to it at the end. She's like, wow. She's like, you came in all bad and, ready to go at it. And then you found out what you were dealing with, and your facial expression completely changed. It went from,
Mhm.
I'm going to put you in cuffs, put you back in the car, to really concerned about this person. I was like, well,
Mhm.
because it is true concern, it is true concern when it comes to all of that.
Mhm.
So that's why I say the main thing is that to be legitimate, to want to help,
Mhm.
because when you're on the other end, you can tell, whether it's just a hello, how are you doing? What's wrong today?
Mhm.
I always say don't really approach people that way unless you're ready to listen to what they have going on with them today.
Right. Right. Well, ladies, I looked at the clock and we have another event like in 1 minute. I want to thank you so much. We love having you, love talking with you. And you have given us so much information. We've gotten a chance to look into your world, and everyone, look into LULAC. It just sounds like it's oxygen for our
Yes.
community. And we want to make sure that you guys can continue to do what you do. So thank you so much. Taking your time. We will be in touch, and anything we can do to help, we're definitely CTC is your partners. So make sure.
Yes.
Yes. So, all
Yes.
right.
Thank you for
Well,
having us.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And we will go ahead and get out of this live stream. And then for everyone, we're going to be coming right back in because we have Chef Lupita's cooking demonstration. She has a traditional Mexican dish. And we have
Ooh.
Taco Tuesday with Great Western. So I hope if you didn't eat lunch yet, you're going to get really hungry after watching these two. So thank you again, ladies, and
You're
everybody.
welcome.
We'll see you in just a few minutes. So
Okay. Thanks.
thank you.
Bye.
And Lee,
You.
take us out.